Let's start with some numbers that should make every leader pause. According to recent studies, a staggering 77% of Gen Z employees are considering or actively looking for a new job. Fewer than a third believe the economic situation in their country will improve in the next year. And across the board, Gen Z reports the highest levels of stress and anxiety of any generation in the workforce, with 40% feeling anxious all or most of the time. Why are the youngest members of our workforce so unsettled? Are they, as some critics suggest, simply less resilient than the generations that came before them? Or is their anxiety a perfectly rational response to a world of unprecedented economic, social, and technological upheaval? This isn't just a generational quirk, it's a potential crisis brewing at the heart of our future economy. If we fail to understand the root causes of this anxiety, we risk alienating an entire generation of talent, seeing productivity plummet and watching innovation stagnate. Today, we're going deep to decode the complex question, what is driving Gen Z's workplace anxiety, and what does it mean for the future of work? Let's explore the full picture to find clarity and perhaps some real solutions. Subscribe to GenShift to join us on this deep dive. Part 1. The anatomy of an anxious workforce. Before we can understand the why, we must first grasp the what. The anxiety Gen Z experiences isn't just a feeling, it's a measurable phenomenon manifesting in distinct, observable ways across the workplace. First, there's the alarming rate of early career burnout and a pervasive sense of aimlessness. Research reveals that for Gen Z, the average age of peak burnout is just 25 years old, a shocking 17 years earlier than the general population's average of 42. This isn't the mid-career exhaustion of their parents, it's an entry-level crisis. Gallup data shows that younger workers have seen the sharpest declines in feeling that someone at work cares about them, or that they have opportunities to learn and grow. This isn't just about being overworked, it's about feeling disconnected and adrift in the earliest, most formative years of a career. This lack of guidance and connection creates a fertile ground for anxiety, where young employees feel they are navigating a complex professional world entirely on their own. Compounding this is a profound and worsening economic pessimism. For the third year in a row, the cost of living is the top concern for Gen Z, but the latest data reveals a startling acceleration of this fear. According to Deloitte's 2025 survey, a staggering 48% of Gen Z now report feeling financially insecure. That number has skyrocketed from just 30% in the 2024 survey. This 18-point jump in a single year signifies a rapid erosion of hope. With 56% living paycheck to paycheck and over a quarter reporting their salary is insufficient for a good quality of life, the constant low-grade hum of financial stress becomes a major contributor to their overall mental burden. This isn't abstract economic theory. It's the daily gnawing worry about rent debt and an uncertain future. Finally, we see this anxiety reflected and amplified in the digital world they inhabit. On platforms like TikTok, hashtags like #anxiety and #workanxiety have amassed billions of views. Here, Gen Z employees share their experiences with a raw, unfiltered honesty, from viral videos detailing the panic of an unopened email inbox to candid confessions about the fear of taking a phone call from their boss. While some may dismiss this as oversharing, it serves a dual purpose. It's a collective coping mechanism, a way of creating social proof that says you are not alone in feeling this way. But it's also a clear signal of a widespread problem. This public vulnerability isn't a sign of weakness, it's a distress flare from a generation grappling with pressures that feel both unique and overwhelming. Part 2, a perfect storm of overlapping pressures. Gen Z's anxiety didn't emerge from a vacuum. It's the product of a perfect storm, a unique convergence of historical, economic, and technological forces that have shaped their worldview. The first major factor is their unique generational marker: they are the pandemic class. While millennials entered the workforce during the 2008 financial crisis, a severe economic shock, Gen Z's professional lives began amidst the global shutdown of COVID-19. This wasn't just an economic event, it was a deeply isolating psychological one. Their first job interviews were on Zoom. Their onboarding was remote. Their first water cooler conversations happened in a Slack channel. They were deprived of the organic mentorship and social learning that happens simply by being in a physical office. This experience imprinted a foundational worldview of work as inherently unstable, isolating, and precarious. The second force is the double-edged sword of social media. As the first true digital natives, Gen Z's entire adolescence and entry into adulthood have been mediated by algorithms. They are constantly exposed to a curated highlight reel of others' successes, creating a relentless comparison engine that fuels imposter syndrome and the feeling of being perpetually behind. But a new, more potent digital stressor has emerged: generative AI. While they are adopting the technology, it is also a source of deep anxiety. 3/4 of Gen Z believe Gen AI will impact their work in the next year, and a striking 61% worry that it will automate the very entry-level tasks they need to build a career, making it harder for them to even get a foothold in the workforce. This leads to the third factor: a profound sense of career ambiguity. The clear linear career ladder that prior generations envisioned has all but disappeared. Gen Z has been told they must be agile, constantly upskilling for jobs that don't even exist yet. This is both liberating and terrifying. It creates an immense pressure to constantly learn and adapt, not for advancement, but simply to avoid becoming obsolete. The path forward is no longer a clear road, but a dense, foggy landscape with no map. Finally, there's the collision between high expectations and a stark reality. Raised in an era that championed following your passion and making an impact, many Gen Zers enter the workforce with idealistic expectations for their careers. They want meaningful work, rapid development, and a supportive culture from day one. When they collide with the often slow-moving, bureaucratic, and impersonal nature of large organizations, the resulting disillusionment can be crushing. This isn't entitlement. It's the predictable outcome of a generation's upbringing clashing with the stubborn realities of the modern workplace, leading to feelings of being let down and profoundly disoriented. Do you see yourself or your Gen Z colleagues struggling with these pressures? What do you believe is the biggest source of anxiety in your work life? Share your thoughts or your story in the comments below. We believe sharing is the first step toward understanding. Part 3: From Anxiety to Action, a generational comparison. The anxiety Gen Z feels is real, but how they respond to it marks a significant departure from their millennial predecessors. This difference in reaction reveals a fundamental shift in the relationship between the worker and the workplace. One of the most contentious debates revolves around coping skills. A common critique is that Gen Z is more fragile or less resilient, having grown up mediating conflicts through screens rather than face-to-face, leading to a lower tolerance for direct, harsh feedback. There may be a kernel of truth to this. A professional life that begins remotely can stunt the development of the thick skin and interpersonal negotiation skills that are forged in the crucible of a physical office. However, the counter-argument is more compelling. Gen Z isn't weaker, they are simply more vocal. They belong to a generation that has actively worked to destigmatize mental health, where previous generations were taught to suppress their anxieties and power through. Gen Z has been given the language and the platforms to articulate their struggles openly. Their willingness to admit they are not okay is not a sign of fragility, but a sign of emotional honesty, a trait older generations were often discouraged from displaying at work. This difference in approach has tangible consequences for the workforce. The high anxiety levels are a direct driver of what some call the Great Detachment, where employees feel disconnected and are constantly seeking an exit. The high turnover rates, with some studies showing 2/3 of Gen Z planning a job change, create instability and increased costs for companies. Burnout is happening earlier and more frequently, depleting the talent pipeline before it can mature. But there is a powerful upside. It is precisely because of their anxiety that Gen Z is becoming the single greatest catalyst for positive change in the workplace. They are the ones demanding better mental health support, pushing for genuine work-life balance, and holding companies accountable on issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is best illustrated by comparing their core response to pressure with that of millennials. When millennials graduated into the 2008 recession, their anxiety manifested as hustle culture. They responded by working harder longer and saying yes to everything, believing that relentless effort was the only way to achieve security. Gen Z, having witnessed the burnout that resulted from this approach, has chosen a different path. Their response is to set boundaries. This is the logic behind trends like quiet quitting. It's not about laziness, but about self-preservation. It is a conscious withdrawal of discretionary effort as a rational response to workplaces they feel are demanding too much for too little psychological safety in return. Both are strategies born from anxiety, but they represent a fundamental divergence in how to survive the modern economy. Part 4. The Path Forward. Turning challenge into opportunity. Understanding the problem is only the first step. Building a healthier, more productive future requires a multi-level approach with actionable solutions for individuals, companies, and society at large. For individual Gen Z workers, the first step is recognizing you are not alone. This shared experience is a source of strength. From there, it's about building a personal toolkit for resilience. Actively seek out mentors, especially millennials who have navigated the aftermath of their own economic crisis and can offer invaluable perspective. Invest time in developing concrete stress management skills, whether through mindfulness exercise or hobbies that provide a sense of purpose outside of your job description. And crucially, practice digital wellness. This means setting firm boundaries with technology, curating your social media feeds to minimize comparison, and scheduling regular time to completely disconnect. These actions help reclaim a sense of agency in a world that often feels chaotic and overwhelming. For companies and managers, the challenge is more structural and the opportunity is immense. The solution is not more pizza parties or wellness apps. It's a fundamental rethinking of leadership and work design. The single most important action a company can take is to train its managers. Gallup data confirms that managers account for 70% of the variance in team engagement, yet fewer than half have received any formal management training. They must be equipped with the skills to be coaches, not just supervisors. This means providing clear, transparent career paths to reduce ambiguity, fostering a culture of regular constructive feedback, and building genuine psychological safety where employees feel they can speak up without fear. The role of a leader must evolve from monitoring tasks to mentoring people. On a broader societal level, we must address the root causes. This involves policy discussions around economic inequality, the rising cost of living, and creating social safety nets that reduce the baseline of financial precarity for young people. It also involves fostering a cultural shift away from hustle culture and toward normalizing failure as a part of growth. The rise of the anti-hustle and soft life movements are not signs of laziness. They are a collective societal pushback against a definition of success that has proven to be unsustainable and damaging to our collective mental health. Ultimately, the most powerful solution lies in fostering an intergenerational alliance. This is a two-way street. Millennials can share their hard-won wisdom on navigating corporate structures and building resilience through adversity. In return, Gen Z can teach older generations the vital importance of emotional honesty, the power of setting healthy boundaries, and how to build a more humane and sustainable definition of success. By combining millennial experience with Gen Z's clarity of values, we can move beyond generational conflict and begin co-creating workplaces that are not only more productive, but also more compassionate and psychologically sound for everyone. Conclusion. The widespread anxiety among Gen Z workers is not a symptom of a weaker generation. It is a logical human reaction to a uniquely challenging set of modern pressures, economic instability, digital saturation, and a future that feels profoundly uncertain. To dismiss it is to miss the point entirely. Instead of critique, we need compassion. Instead of judgment, we need structural change. Gen Z is the future of the global workforce. Their well-being is inextricably linked to our collective economic health and innovative capacity. If we allow them to drown in anxiety, we all lose. But if we listen, adapt, and support them in channeling this anxious energy into positive action, into building more resilient systems, demanding more from our institutions, and redefining success on more human terms, we may find that this pressure doesn't break them. It forges them into one of the most transformative and resilient generations yet. The challenge is immense, but the path forward is clear. It begins with understanding. Are you a young person navigating anxiety about your career and finances? Or are you from a previous generation observing these shifts in your younger colleagues? Share your story in the comments. Every perspective helps build a bridge of understanding. And if you found this analysis valuable, subscribe to GenShift. We're committed to digging deeper into the most pressing questions shaping our multi-generational world of work, helping you stay informed, resilient, and ready for what's next.